website. So here she is. Hey, darling. Hi, Claire. How are you, my girl? Oh, I'm so glad you're here. You too. I think we met at some point in the EDITFEST. Thank you, everyone. It's the last panel of the day. Norm used to ask this question before every panel. He would say, how many people here are editors? Raise your hand. And thank you very much. How many people here are assistant editors? Raise your hand, please. And how many people here are directors wanting to learn how to edit their own films? Please raise your hand. You're wrong. Don't do that. So there's so much to say about Norm, and I just can't even begin to, so I will let this panel do it. Thank you very much. I do want to bring attention to, there's a tribute to him that was written by Bobby Osteen in our book, and it's quite beautiful. And while we're here, I could introduce everyone, but actually they will be introducing themselves on the panel, so thank you very much. Here we go.
Thank you, Jetty. I'm Alan Heim, the president of the Editors Guild and almost former vice president of American Cinema Editors. Norman, I first met Norman when I was editing Lenny, which goes back a long time. And he was my sound apprentice. And then when I met him on Hair again, where he was working in the music department. But after Lenny, I hired him to do Network as my apprentice, picture apprentice. And then he kind of went off and did other stuff, mostly music, some picture editing. He was a remarkable guy. He was always open. He was incredibly friendly, so friendly that we remained friends for over 40 years. And I keep thinking that he never aged. Got a little grayer, and I got a little bolder. But you know, I think of him, I miss him, and he's done so much for the editing community, bringing new people into it, mentoring people, teaching people, and we have a sampling of a lot of the different things he's done, so I would just like to introduce, shall we begin from, let's just begin with the first person next to me.
Hello, my name's Ashley Alazor. I was Norman's teaching assistant at USC for 2 years, and between him and Stephen Lovejoy, Tina Hirsch, and Jacques Rivette, I learned about ACE. And, you know, they told me about ACE, and I said, what's that? So they introduced me to this amazing organization of editors. Also, Ren Claire, sitting next to me, taught me Avid. I'm sorry, you're right here. So, yes, of course, Ren Claire was my professor as well. So I learned about people. I learned about people, and more so even than editing from Norm, because he was such a great person, and a lot of people love him. Yeah.
And I'm Ren Claire, and I teach at USC in the School of Cinematic Arts. I teach two things, aesthetic of editing, and I also teach Avid editing. I've met Norm. First, I read Norm with his books, the handbook, you know, for the assistant editors. And then I met Norm on the phone, and he hired me and brought me to USC 15 years ago. And we developed classes together. We had conversations about so many things. Norm was interested in everything around him: art, books, music, people. Passing his knowledge to other people was really a goal for him. He loves talking with the young people in the classroom. And I'm so happy that we have Ashley and Syra, who are the people we talk to in the classroom, and they are your future colleagues. They are your colleagues now, but we see so many students, and they are your future colleagues. So I'm very happy to be here and talk about Norm.
Hello, my name is Syra Hayter. I edit and was fortunate enough to go through Norm's advanced editing class and to be taught by Ren Claire and Tom Miller. And you know, Norm is special to me because he was a mentor of mine all the way through the current projects I've been editing on, and his loss was a tough one. but I still use the things that he taught in our class to this day. It's pretty devastated to hear about him passing, but I'm grateful to be here to sort of pass on his legacy and share with you guys just how much he's done for the editing community and how many people he's brought together, and just how important mentorship and, being together and reaching out to an editing community really is.
Yeah, I'm Tom Miller, and outside of the school, I teach. I'm a documentary feature editor, and but at USC, Norm hired me 15 years ago also, and gave me the chance to teach. When Kate Amon took a year off, and so I got to teach the documentary class, but then he kept me on, and I've sort of taught almost all of the editing classes since then. But Norm was so generous with his time. Norm, if you went into his office, like, you come out an hour later. He just loved to talk. He loved to share his knowledge. He was interested in what we were doing as well. So he was very personable, both to the faculty and to the students. And it's been a huge loss that he's not at school right now, but is sort of in his honor. Instead of his classroom, is school starting next week, and in his honor, they've turned his office into sort of a meeting place for faculty and for students to meet, and his presence is still felt there, and I think we're all grateful for that.
Norm wrote a book called The Lean Forward Moment, which is, I guess, why we're here. And it had to do with how to keep an audience interested in every aspect, not only in editing, but how to surprise people, how to do things that were somewhat off balance, unexpected. And we're here to celebrate that aspect of Norm's life, I think. And Tom, would you start? You have a clip, I think, to show, and some discussion.
I'm a teacher. I always bring my notebook. So, Norman always liked for us to teach some things that were theoretical and some things that were practical, but always something that was emotional. And he loved the technology, but he also liked, he whatever got the best story, had the most emotion, that's what he wanted us to teach. So I've chosen a clip from Babel, which was a film from 2006. And one of the things that Norm liked us to teach was the rules of three, which was that a shot or a scene, which is a series of shots, or a sequence, which is a series of scenes, they exist as more than a separate entity. They're very dependent on the shot or the scene or the sequence that comes before them to derive meaning for whatever scene or you're going to be showing. And so this, for Babel, people who don't know, it's sort of it's a story with that's shot on 4 continents. It's really 4 separate stories that at the end you find out how all the stories are connected. And for me, it's a film about loneliness and isolation. So this, earlier in the film, I'm looking at the story of a deaf-mute Japanese teenage girl. And earlier in the movie, we find out that she is super isolated, and she's looking for friendship, but mostly she's looking for love and to have her first sexual experience. So this sequence that I'm going to show you, it's 5 scenes, and I'm not showing you 5 scenes. The first scene is sort of edited in a very conventional way, and you see her and some other of her friends that are also deaf meeting some guys, and she's sort of shy, and she's always isolated, and it's edited in a very conventional way, very conventional pacing, very conventional sound. But at the end of that scene, the guys slip her some pills and give her some alcohol. And so the next scene, which you're also not going to see, is that the alcohol starts taking effect, and the shots get longer, the pacing gets slower, and the sound starts to disappear. So then we're gonna pick up on the third scene, but the scene that, well, you'll know what scene I'm gonna talk about. So let's take a look at this